Breaking news in the world of MMA as we have finally got the International Fight Week UFC 317 main event, and it is Ilia Topuria taking on Charles Oliveira. Now, we kind of knew this was going to be the outcome because going into UFC 315 it was laid out that if Belal Muhammad beat JDM it would be Ilia versus Islam, and if JDM beat Belal Muhammad it would be Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. So really it was only a matter of time before this matchup got announced, although I thought this would have been announced right away after UFC 315, and when there was that bit of a delay, then we seen the Alex Pereira news story that Pereira was offered the main event and he turned it down. I then thought there was a bit of problem with getting Ilia Topuria to sign on to fight Charles Oliveira, because yes, we know that Islam is now moving up to the welterweight division because JDM beat Belal Muhammad. But Ilia Topuria made it clear when he announced a couple of weeks back that he was fighting at International Fight Week that he was not fighting for an interim title. And then before the UFC 315 main event took place, we seen Islam Makhachev take to social media to say that he will not give up his lightweight title. But as you can see on the poster here, Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira is for the world lightweight title, not interim, which means they will be stripping Islam Makhachev of his lightweight title, which I understand Islam Makhachev wants that to be a part of that select few of double champ. You know, that does a lot for your legacy. But double champ status just doesn't work. It really doesn't, because if Islam Makhachev was to hold on to the lightweight title here and this was an interim title fight, once Islam fought in the welterweight division, he was never dropping back down to the lightweight division. So that would have just stalled out this division. What I think is going to happen here is exactly what they done to Ilia Topuria going into UFC 314. They said Ilia Topuria was still the featherweight champion. He's still a champ. But as soon as the bell rung in the Volkanovski-Diego Lopez matchup, he was then stripped of his title. And I think the exact same thing is going to happen in this matchup for Islam Makhachev. I think they will promote him still as the lightweight champion right until the bell rings for Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. Just quickly, now, I much prefer this matchup. I would rather see Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. But where's Arman Tsarukyan?
Huh?
Like, this guy is being treated so shitty. I understand he pulled out of UFC 311 and kind of ruined the event. I do get that. But that guy's the number one contender. He's coming off a win over Charles Oliveira. Oliveira is 2-2 in his last 4 fights, beating Beneil Dariush and Michael Chandler in a rematch that nobody cared about. He lost to Arman Tsarukyan and Islam Makhachev. Now, the Arman matchup, yes, Oliveira had moments in there where he nearly subbed him, but Arman Tsarukyan clearly beat him at UFC 300. It's just crazy. It is crazy. And Arman Tsarukyan's the number one contender as well. But like I said, stylistically, this is going to be a much better matchup. It's a much bigger matchup as well. I'm going to be honest, I could see this being Charles Oliveira's retirement fight. Because Ilia Topuria is going to sleep Charles Oliveira. Oliveira's been in the UFC since the dawn of time. He's getting up there in age now. He's taken a lot of damage throughout his career as well. And the damage that Topuria is going to deal to him, in this matchup at 311 or 317, I do think Topuria will knock out Charles Oliveira inside 2 rounds. I really do believe that. Now, Oliveira, it's not as if Oliveira can't beat Ilia Topuria. I mean, it's Charles Oliveira. Of course he can win. Oliveira's going to be much taller than Ilia Topuria in there. He's the natural lightweight. In fact, he has to cut a lot of weight to make lightweight. It's crazy that he fought a featherweight at some points in his career. His really forward heavy pressure. He's a big puncher as well. And obviously he's a massive submission threat. And on the feet, I think Oliveira can have success in there just with his striking style, because yes, Ilia Topuria is a great striker, but he's there to be hit. I mean, you look at Ilia Topuria's last 2 matchups, you just go through his career, the guy does wear a lot of damage on his face. Like, Max Holloway was landing, Oliveira's a much bigger puncher. Volkanovski was having success, Oliveira's the much bigger puncher. Bryce Mitchell was having success at times on the feet, Charles Oliveira's a much bigger puncher. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Topuria's striking style, though, his boxing is just going to be too much for Oliveira. And Oliveira isn't chinny by any means. I mean, this guy, yes, he gets dropped a lot, but he has really good recovery. It's not as if like he just gets hit with one shot and that's him out cold. It's not as if he's like Matt Chanel chinny. Do you know what I mean? The guy does get hurt, but he does have really good recovery. Now, he did look a lot more patient in his last fight against Michael Chandler, but I don't see him being able to just out-grapple Ilia Topuria like that. I don't think Ilia Topuria will just get outmatched by Oliveira like that. I think the low kicks of Topuria will be there for him, and I think the straight shots are going to be there for him as well. And when Ilia Topuria hits and hurts Oliveira and drops him, Ilia Topuria also... People forget, man, Ilia Topuria came into the sport of MMA as a grappler. He's just really developed his striking skills and his boxing as he's got further on in his career. So Ilia Topuria won't be scared of going to the mat with Oliveira like other people have, like your Dustin Poiriers, like your Justin Gaethjes. When Ilia Topuria hurts him and drops him, he will go for the finish. I think Ilia Topuria's straight shots will cause Charles Oliveira problems, and I think Ilia Topuria will stop Charles Oliveira inside 2 rounds. But just quickly, the one that got away, the one... It should have been Islam versus Ilia. It should have been. This pains me. But back to International Fight Week, we've got the co-main event announced as well, and it is Pantoja versus Kai Kara-France. We kind of knew this matchup was going to take place. It's a rematch. I'm kind of confused why the UFC aren't promoting it as a rematch. For those who don't know, Pantoja did beat Kai Kara-France on The Ultimate Fighter a couple of years back. Kai Kara-France, stylistically, in the flyweight division, does offer Pantoja his toughest test, in my opinion. He's a really dangerous striker, probably the biggest puncher in the division, if we're being honest, and he's got really good takedown defense, so it will make for an interesting matchup. I just think Pantoja is clearly just levels above everybody in the flyweight division. I think he will beat Kai Kara-France by decision, and to be honest, Pantoja is probably the most disrespected fighter right now on the UFC's roster. There is going to be a rant video, I think it's coming out tomorrow, I'm going to be dropping it, about the pound for pound rankings. How bad they've done Pantoja is a disgrace, in my opinion. This guy's one of, if not the most dominant champion right now the UFC have, and the disrespect that is shown to this guy is insane. When he beats Kai Kara-France again, if this guy isn't in the top 5 pound for pound rankings, I am going to RKO my setup, because I'm getting fucking sick of this disrespect that this guy's being shown. This guy's on track to becoming an all-time great. People don't want to talk about that. Moving on to some other mega announcements. We have got Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev confirmed for UFC 319 in Chicago. Bit of a weird one. I mean, out of all the places I thought this event would have taken place in, I thought maybe like Australia. Again, DDP's defended his belt twice there. I thought Abu Dhabi maybe. I thought if Khamzat was allowed back in the States, it would have been Vegas, but they're going to Chicago for this one. I'm looking forward to this matchup. I mean, this is one of the big 3 fights that we're finally getting. We're not getting Islam versus Ilia. I don't know what's going on with John Jones, Tom Aspinall. Dana White says relax, he's going to announce that soon. Hurry up. And then we've got DDP versus Khamzat Chimaev. Now, everybody thought it was going to be Khamzat DDP International Fight Week. Nothing was confirmed for that. That was just the fan base kind of speculating. Then it was Khamzat versus Baralho for an interim title, we all thought as well. And then it was DDP's broken his shin, he's out to 2026. None of that shit was true at all. DDP did confirm that. Glad to see this fight is announced. Now, when this fight was just a rumour, I was really on the Khamzat Chimaev train. I thought he was going to beat DDP pretty easy. I thought he was going to beat DDP inside 2 rounds. I'm still right now picking Khamzat to win. I'm really not confident in that pick. If anyone's going to beat Khamzat, it's the guy who fights like he's underwater in Dricus du Plessis. DDP is not going to be easy to finish. And even if he does get ragdoll for the first 2 rounds, I think he'll be able to keep himself safe. Now, I don't think he can match Khamzat in the grappling ability. I really don't. I think he's going to get smoked early on in the grappling. But I think he can match him in strength, which might help him try and survive. And then after those 2 rounds, when Khamzat empties the gas tank, or maybe Khamzat, now that he's kind of worked around these health issues, maybe he has a good gas tank, we just don't know, and he could just absolutely maul DDP for 5 rounds. We don't know. That's what makes this matchup so interesting. I am really looking forward to this one. I wonder what the rest of the card is going to be. But with this main event in it, they're probably going to stack it with shite that nobody wants to see on the undercard, because they've got this as the main event. The UFC's matchmaking recently has been pretty terrible, the way they've constructed cards, if we're being honest. I mean, the last good card was UFC 314. Like that, as in, not like, oh, the last good card in a couple of weeks. The last good card in a very long time, in my opinion, was UFC 314, stacked from top to bottom. But yeah, this is good. I'm glad we're getting this match up. Like I said, I am edging pause to Khamzat Chimaev right now. And just finally, UFC 317 isn't great, in my opinion. This is it. This is it. This is the bout list. Disappointing. It is really disappointing, in my opinion. But yeah, Ilia Topuria is going to be taking on Charles Oliveira and become the new lightweight champion. Let me know what you think of these announcements in the comments below. And as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Thank you all for the support, and I'll see you all again in the next one.